Welcome everybody to Homelessness Week, and thank you very much for attending and participating in this webinar. Today, I just want to also welcome you to our lived experience webinar, Ask Me Anything, which has always been incredibly popular. And I need to say that Counsel to Homeless Persons as your peak in Victoria is nothing without its lived experience at the centre. And we are really fortunate today to have lived experience experts participating in the panel. I want to also acknowledge that we are hosting this webinar on Wurundjeri country and pay my respects to elders past and present. I want to extend that acknowledgement to all other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders who are on the webinar with us today, and also acknowledge the other beautiful Aboriginal lands that each of you are meeting us on and participating in this webinar. I want to also say that we have done a lot of work in Victoria around treaty. I want to congratulate the current government for the work that it's done on treaty and hope that whatever the outcome is, we continue this journey of reconciliation in our country. And just in terms of, before I hand over to the person who will be facilitating this session for us, I want to let everybody know that this session is being recorded and will later be shown on YouTube. And on that note, I will now hand over to Kathy Wilson, who is the Director of Lived Experience at Counsel to Homeless Persons. Thanks very much.
Hello, everybody. It's really good to be in this conversation with you, and I'm a bit nervous given it's my first time to be a facilitator of this, but still, bear with me. We do have some some early questions that people have asked us earlier, or that we've thought in our conversation, getting prepared, we'd like to actually be raising and talking about with you. So there's Jeremy. Hello. Now, why I'm saying hello to Jeremy, he's one of our panel and is calling in from Bendigo in between various Homelessness Week events he's organising down there. So just to introduce before we go on, this is Jeremy. There's Stacey Stokes there with us. There's Jacinta and D'Angelo who's with us. And I've lost her on my screen, but Diana Connell. So these are our four panelists. Particularly hello to you four, but to the whole group of you, hello, and let's be in conversation with each other. The focus of this session, it's called Ask Me Anything, but it's really not quite Ask Me Anything. It's Ask Me Anything around why do you stand up and use your experience and your expertise to make change? How should lived experience be embedded across the homelessness sector? So there is a focus on that this time. And the reason that we've got that particular focus, like often we have people telling their stories of their experience, and that will happen a little bit today. But this is more about change and change makers, and how do we all be change makers by bringing lived experience and non-lived experience together. The reason we're having this conversation today is because we're starting a 12-month in-depth conversation across the sector in every region in Victoria to come up with a shared vision and a shared way of really moving forward from words, small action, to a well-planned, well-developed approach, elevating lived experience expertise across the system so it has impact. So we've got a particular focus on this. Now, I said we've got a few pre-prepared questions, but we do really want to be in conversation with all of you. So anytime you want to, I'll stop every so often if I remember to give you a moment to put questions in the chat, but please put any questions you have in the chat and Lucas will moderate them and provide them to the panel, and we'll build them into the conversation. So we've got till 1:30. We will take the last question from you about 1:20 or 1:15. and then we'll just bring things to a nice close so that you can get back to work or take a break at 1:30. So having said that, also one thing I wanted to say, one of our people, Jessie, they're not able to be here today at the last minute, and Jessie is a profoundly inspiring young person. So whilst there is an absence of a younger person's voice from this panel today, please keep it in mind. And if you've got any questions around that, we'll take them on notice and work with Jessie to provide some answers later on. So the first thing, and I might just, if it's okay, Stacey, is it okay if I start with you? Lucky you. So the first question is, could you tell us why and how you use your lived experience and expertise to create change? Why have you stood up as a lived experience expert?
Yeah, sure. So I've had at this point, I think I'm up to five of my friends now have passed away. Um, and I've seen a lot of other friends who have ended up um, in the psych ward, some of them at Thomas Embley, and they just, whether they're not here or they can no longer articulate what it is that they've been through, what it is that's led them to the situations that they're in. But I can still do that. So I feel very much like I have to do that for my friends and to honor the people who I've lost. Um, yeah, because they mattered to me, even if maybe they didn't matter to society as much. But they mattered to me. Um, and they had families and parents, and yeah, and they're the stories that people don't hear, I suppose. Society just sort of ignores that these things happen. Um, and so when I was able to, I started writing about these things. And not for, it wasn't for money or anything like that. It was just so that the story is there and that there's a record. And rather than like Channel 7 reporting like a dog on a surfboard or something, like my writing is there. It's the truth, and people can read it. So I write for a newspaper now about the things that are just true. Yeah.
Okay, so the truth telling. So Jacinta, what is it why and how do you use your lived experience to make change? How's that for you? You're on mute. Always happens, no drama.
I'm here, sorry. Thanks, Kathy. Yes, my children and I fled a really high-risk domestic violence situation about 7 years ago, and we faced so many systemic barriers, and I felt very alone in that situation. Obviously, at the time, I just didn't feel like there was many people talking about how it is today. So these days, I do a lot of public speaking, panels such as this. I'm a lived experience advisor, on many different services. And one of my main passions and desires for using my voice is to make change, to make people aware of the things that need to be changed so that it's not as difficult for people moving forward. And I feel that this experience can happen to anyone. And so what I've found that when I have done any speaking events, public speaking events, I always have people come up to me afterwards, and it makes people feel less alone and acknowledged, and they want to share their experience too. So it's really important for me because I feel like this can happen to anyone. So by using my voice, it helps others. I've written a book about it as well. So I think that when we're in tough times, I know myself when I was in a really dark place, that we look for others for that hope. And so that's one of my reasons about using my voice to help others.
Thanks, Jacinta. So Donna, do you want to follow on from that one?
Absolutely. As similar, not similar story, but similar to Jacinta, I also experienced extreme domestic violence with my kids who were older at that stage, but they were both at school. But yeah, I do this. I've, I've thought about this a lot over the last 9 years because I started advocating and using my voice probably about a year and a half after we fled, and we were in a safe home at that stage. And I thought, I need to share my story. And at that time, not many people were. So I shared my story at Vinnie's CEO Sleep Out. That was my first ever one. And I thought, why are people listening? Like, what has really hit them here? Because I mean, to me, that was just my story. That was my life. That is what had happened. And then as the years have gone by, I've done so much more in the not just homelessness but DV sector. Um, oh gosh, sorry, that just fell. But yeah, and I then realized though that it's not. I tell my story, yes, but now it's evolved into what that's it's not so much my story now, it's what we can create change from what had happened. And that's what I listen for now in many people's stories. And yeah, it's about listening, but it's also about acting upon as well. And that's why I tell my story.
You also act in other ways, Diana, like you're part of tiny homes.
Lots and lots of ways. So housing is a really big one for me. It's all about prevention, and also it's all about early intervention as well to mental health as well. I've spoken in lots of inquiries. So the mental health one, domestic violence, and yeah, I guess everything is connected. And I think until we start seeing that and also stop working in silos, I feel get homeless to zero is which it should be in Australia.
Thank you. So we got writers, advisors, and Jeremy, you're in a peer worker role. Tell us why you have chosen to share your experience and use your experience to make a difference.
Hi everyone. I'm the homelessness peer support worker for Homes First and Catholic Care. It's weird because when I first started working, it was shortly after I got rehoused, and I felt I needed to. I just had this overwhelming urge to give back and to help people. But the more I've worked in this field and with there was a lot of storytelling involved in my journey, and it has been until this day actually. But I just became so glaringly obvious that there was this group of homeless people that were just getting left behind, the so-called complex clients and whatever. And I, I'll be honest, I find it sickening and really saddening, and that will be part of my journey in the next couple of years. With the lived experience panel that committee that I work with now, I started my journey facilitating a lived experience committee in Ballarat, and they won awards 2 years in a row. They were brilliant. And I've now started one here in Bendigo, and they are going to be even better. But we've just done a period of immense storytelling, and I just found that they're giving some pretty heartfelt, pretty raw stories, and we're not doing it justice because people can't hear those stories, and I think they actually need to be honest with you. So, yeah, that's where I'll be going in the next little while. Watch this space. There'll be a movie coming out. We're thinking of actually doing a short film. We'll see how that goes.
Odysseus, eat your heart out. Here we come. Thanks, Jeremy. So just someone in chat has said this, Stacey is spotlighted. Is that sorted?
That might just depend on people's views. If you go up, everyone, to the top right-hand corner, you will see a icon that's a box with 3 little boxes on top of that. And if you collect, well, actually, you'll see different kinds of boxes. If you select speaker, you should be seeing our spotlighted speakers. So I can see Danny saying, I can see everyone. You probably have on the top right corner, you probably have gallery selected. So again, if you turn your view to speaker, you'll see our
Okay. So you can manage that in your own settings. So I just want to give people who are listening, thinking, just one moment's thinking time is just hearing what people have said so far about why and in some ways how they share stories, or not. It's not just stories, how people share their knowledge and experience. Any questions that are arising for you about that you feel like putting in the chat? And if there's not yet. We've got a few more questions that we can work through, but just stay in conversation or stay in thought with us if you can. So I noticed Jeremy talked about the importance, and others talked about listening to stories and then acting, or listening to experience and then acting to achieve impact. So I'm going to presume that most of the people in this room, in this virtual room, already would say, I think the knowledge and expertise of people with lived experience is important. So my question to the panel is, why do these people need to keep listening to the experience of people with lived experience and listen really deeply? And follow-up question is, what do they need to do with that listening? So are you ready to go, Jacinta? I might reverse the orders a bit, but if it's, just by the way, feel free to say pass or not my time yet.
Yeah, I'm good to go.
Thanks.
Yeah, so I feel that lived experience is extremely important. I can see that from the involvement I have in some associations that I'm currently working with. I'm the ambassador of the Big Group Hug, so I do a lot of public speaking for them, and like we do volunteer nights, and I let everyone know that the impact that everyone is having, but also where I see from when I'm a lived experience advisor with Victorian Legal Aid, and going through some of the documents and being able to advise people on some of the changes that need to be made in some of these documents. So I feel like it just has such a huge impact, because unless you've actually walked in the shoes of someone that's been, however they've ended up homeless, you can only ever really understand it unless you've walked in those rooms. I feel like we have a really powerful voice to be able to help change some of the systems that are already facing, but also highlight the barriers that I'm sure some of the people on the panel have, I know myself that there are barriers that I've come across along the way. So I feel lived experience is really highlights and can give a really good voice of the particular changes that can be made. So I think it really needs to be embedded in most services out there to give a bit of a blueprint of what needs to be changed and some reform.
Thanks, Jacinta. So, Jeremy, what would you say, the people who are listening to you today, why should they keep listening to you, and how should they use what they hear?
I don't know how to answer that one, to be honest with you. Just so you all know, I'm not very good with coming up with good words, but I've got plenty to say most of the time. And I'm also not in a very good state right now. I'm sitting in my car, and I left my glasses in the hotel I stayed in last night, and I'm wearing a broken pair I found on the floor. So I digress.
But you're still worth listening to.
Oh, thank you. It's just, I don't know. I've found since I've embarked on my journey that people really listen to me for some reason. What you said before, Diana, was really so true. I don't know. Maybe it's the way I talk. I've always been good with people, so people always listen to me. But what I have to say won't always be the same as what Diane has to say or what Jacinta has to say. So the more voices that we do listen to, the better, which is why it does need to be embedded everywhere. I have to admit, I have been met in Ballarat with everybody listened to me, took on board everything I said, and I tried to encourage that of the other 10 members that joined the Lived Experience Group Heart. They were all people who had gone through the food home program as I had, and they got paid for their time. They were absolutely. I cannot explain to you what came out of a 2-hour meeting once a month was just incredible. And that was 10 voices. So people need to keep listening to us. The government, to be honest with you, I don't know if I think they listen to CHP because CHP just did, you guys did a magnificent investigation into the assertive outreaches. That was absolutely brilliant. Because that's a big thing that I harp on about as well, just quietly. Yeah, the government really needs to listen because, again, as I said, I have this real problem with this group of homeless people that we're just leaving behind. We just really, really are. And I don't know how we get the government to listen to that. I would be really interested to have a chat, more chats with you, Kathy, because I've just met Kathy, by the way, everybody. I've spoken with you before, Deborah. Perhaps we could have another, because this is really, I think it's crucially important. I can't believe that we are forgetting these people, to be honest with you. It's just disgusting. Sorry, I rambled then, but it really upsets me, this one.
Yeah. So listening has to lead to something else.
Well, it really does.
And something at government policy level as well. So there's something about at the service level where we change practice. There's something about policy level where we change policy or inform policy. So we really need to target our impact and know what each of us can do to target impact. So, Diana, did you want to add to that about, why do you think people who are already saying, I'm committed, need to keep listening, and how do they have impact? So one of the things one of the questions is, have you seen it anywhere done well?
Absolutely. And Jeremy, I'm there with you too, feeling that agony and that pain. It's like lived experience. I've always said like it's a piece of the puzzle that's missing, and everyone must listen and act upon it. And to me, it's very important too, those missing voices. So I just wanted to add that in on what you said, Jeremy. It's really important. Thank you. And I have seen this done really well. I'm involved in Safe at Home project, which is actually through Macaulay Community Services for Women and Children. And we're running it in Geelong. We've done just over a year now on the trial. And what it is about we started it off, and I actually started 7 years, I think it's about 7, might be near 8 years ago now, and I helped co-design it with another amazing colleague of mine at the time. So the two of us co-designed the beginning of it all, and our main focus was to keep lived experience. So we had to keep those women at the centre of it. So what we're doing is it's about not letting women become homeless from domestic and family violence, women and children. So that's where we really wanted to know what the community thought as well, what all the sectors thought, government, police, lawyers. So we've involved everybody. We're running it in Geelong, as I said. It's going incredibly well. And I'm just so proud to be a part of it, but I'm also I might sit on the governance group for that as well. So I'm really there just to keep a close eye and make sure that we are right at the centre of it, sticking to what we should be focusing on, which is the women and children, and that we don't go back into that total professionalism and forget about that piece of that puzzle that's missing, and that's the voice of, of women and children. Yeah, so it's done really, really well, and I can't wait for it to roll out everywhere. I'm sure it will. Of course, funding is always that major thing. And I think that's something that we should really be touching on as well here. I know I'm going a bit astray too, like Jeremy, but funding is massive. We shouldn't, we expect all these incredible people working in these sectors to, stress about funding and not know whether that funding's going to last for that next year, whatever's going to happen. And then people, you got to shuffle everyone around. Well, that's not doing any good for anybody. And also those people that are trying to find that funding, they need to be doing their job that they really want to do, and that is that support. And I just feel, we've got such a long way to go, and there's so many things that we need to, I guess, uncrinkle and also work out the missing puzzle pieces, which we still have not done.
So one of the things, there's many things Dinah said there, but one of the things is people with lived experience need to be in governance roles as well.
Mm-hmm.
Be in the place where decisions are made as well. And another important thing is, if you want to see lived experience being authentic and empowered, then I think it's really important that we all start distinguishing between what's consultation and what's authentic co-design. So if we're asking what can we all do, it's really is understand the difference between the two. Do some work in that space. And Jeremy is talking about really authentic co-design in his work too, and that's what peer workers often, lead that sort of work. But Stacey, in your experience, what do you think? What do people do after they listen and commit? What's their next step? Not for people with lived experience, but for people who are working in the sector or who have some other means of influence. What's their next step?
I think that it's like, in the way I see it, the people with lived experience are they're like the mystery shoppers who are identifying the failures, and the people who have gone to university and got these degrees to show how clever they are. It's their job to fix all the failures. Yeah, and I think that's why it's important to keep listening to people who have lived experience, because they're the ones who are actually engaging, and they're the ones who are identifying the shortfalls and the failures and the systemic things aren't working. And the people who, a lot of the workers, if they don't hear that there's a problem, then there's no problem and everything's fine. I think that the people who are getting all the training and going to uni and all of that, it's their job to fix it. The policymakers are the ones who I think have a responsibility to make sure that these things are fixed and implement all the solutions, and not just gaslight the community that everything's fine. It's like the favorite thing of mine that I always say, that people who are in prison who are awaiting parole, it's $170,000 for that to keep them in there. They can't get parole because they're homeless people. So it's like massive amounts of money that's being wasted when these people could be in the community. But like the parole board, for example, won't release them because they don't want to tarnish their reputations. So then they say no one has reoffended on parole, because that's true. But the people who are getting out and are homeless, how many of them have gone on to reoffend because they're freezing cold and just want to go back to prison where it's warm and they have food? Like the government doesn't release those statistics because those are the statistics that are damning. So, it's like lived experience are the people who get to tell the truth, and the policymakers, rather than just like smothering that truth and gaslighting everyone, they need to face the truth. The messes that they're pushing under the bed and pretending everything's been cleaned up. And the people, the workers and everyone, they need to come up with the solutions and make sure that the governments and policymakers don't just ignore it.
So there is a thing about us all thinking about what are the solutions to what can be simple fixes and what could be complex systems problems. And I know some of you in the room will also be experiencing the systems failures in just trying to do your job day to day. So in some ways we're on the same experiential page, because you don't have the power to make the change either. But one of the things is for us to think together about what is the change we want, and to use voice wherever we are to name that, or to push the conversation to those solutions. So that I see someone else in the chat has asked about
turning off AC.
Sorry? Lost. I heard something there, but I don't know what it was.
It sounded like an AI.
Someone's got an avatar. All right. Avatars and all. I saw someone in the chat had asked about safety. So let's move on to that conversation, because I know Jessie, who's not here today, one of the things they wanted to talk about was safety. And it was, my question to each of the panel is how do you share your experience in a way that you feel safe with, and what work has it taken you to be able to do that? That's my first question. Then I'll ask a follow-up one. So anyone ready to go with that? Shall I pick on someone? Diana, you're smiling. What work have you done, Diana, and what makes you feel safe, or what do you do to make sure you don't get re-traumatized, you're not burdened with people consciously or unconsciously disrespecting or not hearing you? How do you create, what work do you do for your own safety in this space?
That's actually a really interesting question, because when I first started speaking, and I was telling my story at many places, in front of so many people, and it did traumatize me. And then I realized, though, that I don't owe anyone else my trauma. I don't, that was something that I realized I only need to tell what I feel like telling and what I feel safe with telling. And also that's when I realized it's not just your story, it's connecting what's missing and making people understand what's missing, and what we need to change. So that's when I started speaking, I guess, a lot differently in that respect. So it wasn't then all about my story, it was linking everything together. And, I guess it's that big thing too. I ask myself, why am I sharing? Like, I'm not going to be doing this at places that I feel, they're just tokenistically getting you to ask. So, of course, that I've spoken at quite a few of those before I really learnt, I guess, where I felt safe. And yeah, when you're asked to do something very tokenistic, like you've asked to come speak at the end of something where they've already made decisions or they've done something, or you get asked at the beginning and then not through the rest, it's just a tick of the box, and that makes very I guess hurtful, because you can't that's just getting someone in and using them, really. So from that point on, I realized that it was my decision to share what I wanted and where I wanted. And also, so I do have that responsibility, but also so do the organisations or whoever it is that's getting you to ask to speak as well. They have a huge responsibility to make it a safe place, no matter where it is, online or in person. And there's lots of things you can do. I've got, I write out big lists of things to help people understand what safe means. Doesn't just mean safety, on whatever on the outside. It's also making you feel safe inside. And also, it's also on the organization side, it's also that you have to take that information that you've learnt and you have to do something with it. You can't just bypass it. You can't just let it sit there. You must actually then progress that somewhere else.
Thanks, Diana. Stacey, did you have anything you'd like to say around what do you do to be safe, and what do you think is the responsibility of others?
Yeah, there's been a few times where I've had to ask myself, like Diana said, like, am I just a token here? Like, am I tick box? Are they just so they can say we had lived experience engagement and they don't really care what I'm saying? And then there's other times where I've I've said no to things because I've realized that they're just trying to use my reputation to make them seem credible. Like I had Victoria Police ask if I'll do a panel with them, and I was like, no, I don't really feel comfortable with that because um, if they have a lived experience trans person, then other trans people will come. But if it's just Victoria Police, then no trans people will come, and I didn't feel comfortable with that. Um, then there's other places. I do quite a lot of work with Flat Out, and I know that if I need them to help me on a Sunday at 7 p.m. because I'm having a crisis, they will because it's relational in that regard, and they do care what happens to me. Like I actually matter to them, and the outcomes for me matter to them. They want the best for me, and I think that's different. It's like, do I matter to these people, or are these people just using me as a foot in the door or a tick box? And like I ask myself that all the time before I do something, and it can be hard too because sometimes I feel like there really needs to be a lived experience voice there, but I just feel like it's not done safely sometimes in some places. And I can't do it because I know that it's going to trigger me. And it will be bad for my mental health. So, yeah, there's a lot of things you have to kind of ask yourself.
So just one of the things here is there's a lot of work that goes in to being a lived experience advisor, peer worker, or even to telling your story once off. But telling it multiple times requires a depth of thinking that probably people may not realise. Jeremy, I know you've been working with your men up in Bendigo. When you think about safety for them, what do you think about, and what do we need to think about?
Really interesting that we're having this conversation because, and I'm going to go back to storytelling again because again, it's been a big part of the work that I do. That when I worked at Uniting, I was constantly dealing with the storytelling department and things like that, and they were really good. They would come ask me and ask Hark how things should be done. Were we doing it right? Were they being responsible? However, when I got to do what I'm doing now, I don't know that I have totally been as good as I should be on this particular topic, to be honest with you. Because, and it's weird because I haven't always been very good at looking after myself, to be honest with you. I have, from my journey onwards, I have been on, as we all do as humans, I've been on a passage of growth, and I've grown as a human being, and I've forgiven myself for so many things, and I have severe health issues. I have a disease which sort of aided my mental health deteriorating when I was made homeless. So, and I'm now over that as well. It is what it is. I've just got to live with it. So I haven't hardened, but I have altered my way of thinking, well, my way of being to being very different. However, I think I did neglect that a little bit with the people that I work with down here. I did storytelling with my clients, I always made sure that they knew that we were there if they ever needed to come back and talk about anything, if they had any problems. But I just, and this is why I'm on my high horse a little bit, because a couple of the people who told their homeless stories went right back to the trauma when they were 8 years old, and
Yeah.
there was some really horrific, horrible things that were said. And that has to have an impact on them. Although I have to admit, I did, because we weren't asking these questions. They were offering information freely. And I've spoken very well with these people. They felt very comfortable, and you could see with one person in particular, he needed to say what he was saying. To be honest, I think he almost found it therapeutic. But again, I think I failed a little bit on that. It is really important, especially, and I will look into this if I go further with the short film and things, because they're the sorts of stories that we're going to tell, very real, very raw, and very and we have people prepared to give it, and they want to give it for that reason. They want to create change. They want to change people's perception. They want to change. If you could hear these stories, you wouldn't have any judgment. There'd be none. You'd just go, oh my God.
Yeah. So one of the things is really safety is a mutual responsibility. Yes, we have responsibility for ourselves, but our ability to know how to take care at one point in time might differ than another point in time. So it's always anyone who's engaging people with lived experience needs to really be thoughtful, have made safety a conscious thought, be in conversation early, but also afterwards. So
and I don't know that I did, Kathy, and that's why from now on I will. I have learned from this.
So we
and
do. Yeah. So just by the way, there's a bit of reverb happening. So if someone hasn't got their mute on, we're just getting a bit of hearing from your background. So if you can put your mute on, that'd be great. So safety does matter. Safety and respect are part of the same story. Jacinta, did you want to add anything to that conversation before we move into the next one?
Yes, I just wanted to add, I know for myself personally that I waited until all my court cases were over. So once I'd finished with all the family court and intervention orders and things like that were all over, that's when I felt like I was ready that I could do my speaking, because it came from a place of reflection and insight. So that was a way of me keeping safe. Also, I was also very mindful that when I do any speaking, lived experience speaking, that I rarely talk about my ex-partner or anything like that. I kind of talk about more about action, inspiration that you can get through that. So it's also being mindful of the audience with telling story, but not re-triggering them either, and telling them the trauma too. So that's probably the main things that I would say as keeping safety and considering others as well.
Yeah, and there is a broader thing too around now that we're recording, keeping photos, is what sort of permissions do you need to get from people when you're working on sharing their expertise or their stories? You know, what permission to use or reuse a story, a video, a photo. So it's really thinking about the online environment and how do you work with a person so they keep ownership of their story, of their identity, and also how it might change over time. So it's a really important thing to be thinking about. So just from anyone who's listening or thinking, just put it in the chat, but what sort of things are you beginning to, or are you now thinking a little bit more about in terms of embedding lived experience, working in partnership with people with lived experience? What are you taking away as your own next step? You may not want to put anything in chat, but that's part of why we're having this conversation, is to say, yes, lived experience people will stand up, will ask, and will demand their voices, their experience, and their knowledge to be heard. But for it to have impact, it's a really mutual process wherever we are in the system, whatever role we have. Chat.
Kathy, I just have to say my battery might go dead any minute now, so if I disappear, goodbye everyone. But I'm here for now.
We're glad you're here and you've been here, and when you go, you see another day. All right, nothing much is popping into chat yet, so I'm going to move on.
Just, Kathy, we had a contribution from CP over at Lodge Housing who said, I'm thinking about our role as an organisation and how we can be a platform.
Yeah, great. Thank you, CP. And anyone else, just to add them in as it comes to mind, or even if it doesn't come to mind while you're in this conversation, just make a note of it, note to self for another day. So another question we pre-prepared, or we talked about earlier, and that maybe is worth going into, is there's a few more, but I might go to the question of hope. Given we're in a system that is not working effectively, we've got all sorts of financial challenges for funding. We do have attitude that creates stigma and blame and so on. Do you still have hope? Hope that we can make the change that will get rid of homelessness or make it short, non-recurring, and people feel a sense of dignity and respect rather than shame and blame. So Jacinta, do you have hope? And if so, why?
I absolutely have hope, 100%. And the reason being is that I left a house with my two young children, 2 and 4 at the time, and we've completely rebuilt our life from scratch. And we have got a really great life. And I think that we do need to embed lived experience in government, in housing. We need to have that more so that people and services don't work in isolation, that they see the bigger picture, and that there's a format so that we can end homelessness. I mean, it's in other parts of the world, like Scandinavia, they don't have any homelessness. What they do is they don't offer crisis accommodation. They set people up into some stable housing. So there's a real gap in the system, and that's what we need to connect the dots so that we don't have people fall through the loopholes. So absolutely, we have great services out there. We need more training. We need people to not be put in a box in a means test, and we need communities to be connected so that we can learn what else is out there.
And Jeremy, and just in case you fade, you talked today really meaningfully about the people who are left behind, who are left out. Do you have hope that we can fix this and become respectful, inclusive, knowing of people's fundamental dignity?
I really do, but and like I said, I think if all goes how I hope things will go, I'm at a stage in my life where, and I don't want to be all morbid and put some morbidity on this, but I won't be working for a whole lot longer. My working days are very limited with what's happening, so I am going to go hell for leather, over this, the whole, the people that are being left behind, and I'm going to rack my brains. I'm going to do all sorts of talking and all sorts of learning to find out how we can fix this, because I know that we can. But it's the shame of it is, because I believe lived experience won't solve things, but there are a lot of answers in service delivery and everything, and what a lived experience person will give you. Unfortunately, if you have somebody who is suffering severe mental health breakdowns or severe AOD issues, then they're not able to sit down and give you a comprehensive list of remedies to fix the problem that they're in. Although I reckon we give it a go.
Yes.
But yeah, we just need so many people to be talking about this, and I cannot believe that we're not.
Yeah.
And I mean, this isn't just homelessness. Not everyone that is homeless has crazy AOD issues or massive mental health issues. Can simply be a marriage breakup or whatever. But there is an underlying issue of trauma and AOD that is really prevalent in so much of it. And I cannot believe we're not talking about it.
So there's a lot of intersection between family violence, AOD, justice system, everything.
I have to admit, I'm part of, I don't know if you guys have heard of the Zero projects that are going on around Melbourne. I'm part of the one in Ballarat. It is absolutely awesome. And if anyone can get those going in their municipalities, go for it, because they're huge. You have a room of 20 practitioners from all walks of life, legal aid, marriage counselling, you name it, and they're all talking about one person.
Yeah.
That one person's problems.
Yeah. And local government is often involved in that. So we really need to keep knowing that local government is part of this story too, and part of the hope for solution.
Everybody has a stakeholder involved in it. It's absolutely awesome. So honestly, look into it if you guys can. Zero is absolutely, it's going to be brilliant.
Okay.
Well, I think it is.
Thanks, Jeremy. Stacey, knowing, I'm really sorry that your friends have died, but hearing this from you, a question: how do you hold hope, and if so, why?
I like one of the reasons why I um do the lived experience stuff as well is like I'm not trying to make the world a better place. I'm trying to make sure it doesn't get worse. And I feel like it's like Australia is a democracy, apparently, and everyone needs to participate. And I like I'm my hope, and I truly believe it is like things won't get worse. With all these people in the room here, things aren't going to get worse. And so hopefully things will improve. There are people here who care and who are speaking up, and the people who are listening, and yeah, so it's like because of that, I have hope that things will get better. Yeah, like if we came here today and it was just two of us and five people listening, I'd be like, well, we're screwed. But it's not the case. So things like this give me hope, like.
Thank you. So we got to have the conversations, absolutely. So Diana, for you, hope or no?
Yep, hope is absolutely something I live by, always have, always will. And I think it's something that is really, really important in everything I do. If I didn't have hope, I wouldn't be here today, and I don't think anybody else would be here either, listening in and learning from this. And what gives me hope with this is that ending homelessness, is that other countries have done it. we need to look at how they've done it, and we need to come up with a way here. Our government needs to come up with a way here that can, we can fit that model into what we're doing. And also, I think the hope I carry as well is that everybody, like wherever I speak here today as well, we don't listen, we go and act upon that. So everybody here, if they're carrying that hope as well, they should be going on now and really thinking about, are we, whatever we're building and whatever we're doing, have we got everybody's voice in here? And I think that is such a crucial question we all need to be asking ourselves. I don't have all the answers, not saying I do, but as I said earlier, it's a piece of that puzzle, and not just one lived experience person either. We need more involved in separate things, I guess, just things that we're making anything, because at the end of it, that's, those lived experience people, they hold that crucial voice. And that's what gives me hope that over the last 9 years, I have seen, like my role, what I do today was unpaid. And when I first started doing it, I wasn't getting paid for speaking. I really hit hard about that, and that we must be getting paid. So just in that short period of time, we have come so far. Lived experience now is an actual, it's an actual job. It's a paid job. It's recognised as experience. And I've always said, when you walk into a room, you should be just as equal as everybody else. So everybody should be on that same level. I was in that relationship for 28 years, violent relationship. And I say, I come with 28 years of knowledge, and that's equal to what everyone else has got in that room. So that is where I hold on to hope.
Thank you. So we're just about on time. It's 1:28, so I won't ask any more questions, but I do want to say to Jacinta, Stacey, Diana and Jeremy, thank you, thank you, thank you. And to all the people who've spent your time listening and thinking and feeling, appreciate that you've chosen to do this as part of Homelessness Week, or ending Homelessness this week, as maybe we should call it. But also to say, let's together translate hope into action, into change. So look forward to being part of a really deep, ongoing conversation with you about how we, across the system, region by region, role by role, through the creativity, books and movies, through governance, through policy, through peer support, through all the different roles, how we translate lived experience into practice, and then how we bring two knowledge types together, professional trainings and lived experience expertise, we bring them together to make change. So we're right on time. So many thanks for being here, and look forward to continuing the conversation, and hats off to the people on the panel. Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you.
And thanks for the panel, the chat contributions, we'll collect them up as well. We'll appreciate you taking the time to write them, and also remember to do your notes to self if that suits.